Hi, welcome to Gotcha Attention. If you, I'm pretty sure anyone who watches my videos watches someone who is not a Gotcha tuber. Like, random example, Wenji, is that her name? Or my sister watches Wenji and Lauren Z side. Honestly, I don't like her. She annoys me. Her voice is like, "Hello, fellow kids." That's like super annoying for me. I mean, she doesn't say it like that, but it is annoying every time she says that. But anyways, any person, excuse me, excuse me again. Any person that video records themselves, I don't know how else you would record yourself, but any person that records their face on YouTube will most likely say, "I'll see you in the next video," which is not true. You cannot see someone in your video because you are just looking at a camera and the person is watching you. So you should be saying, "You'll see me in the next video." Anyone who does that is wrong. And it should be, "You'll see me in the next video." That's why I say, "You'll most likely hear my next video," or I say thanks for tolerating me because I'm annoying and weird. But this is another, I've already been talking for 2 minutes. This is another creepypasta story. Whatever. Creepypasta part 3. I'm going to be reading stories 5 and 6 out of 8. So, here we go. The 5. Oh, I can't even read this word. If any of you know how to pronounce it, it's spelled Oneirrophage. It looks like the word orphanage, but it isn't. The Oneirrophage, whatever. Doesn't matter. Maybe it does. I don't know. In the late 40s of the last century, after the decade of private research involving experiments with binaural beat brainwave frequencies. Do beats have brains? Oh. With binaural beat brainwave frequencies. Oh my gosh. If this thing is full of big words, I'm just gonna skip to number 6. I can't read this. It's gonna take up the whole video to try to even read the 5th one. So I'm gonna skip number 5 and just do I'm gonna do 6 and 7. If you want to read number 5 yourself, I'm gonna scroll up to the top. And okay, it is thelineup.com. 10. Oh, it's 10. I thought it was 8. It says, okay, never mind. It says 8. 8 short creepypasta stories that will give you the chills. If you look up what is the best, I looked up what is the best website to read creepypasta stories. My phone wouldn't allow me to click on the first website, so I was scrolling down and I just found this one. But if you want to read number 5, I'll spell it out again so you can look it up. Alright, number 5 is spelled the Oneirrophage. Man, this is long. Alright, number 6. It started as a leak. The rainy season began in early summer, and June had been no exception. It did not surprise the man when he discovered rainwater dripping from his dining room ceiling. Shrugging it off, he placed a tall pot beneath the leak and accepted it to stop on its own. However, it continued to rain, and before he knew it, the pot would threaten to overflow. He had to dump the water out first thing in the morning, and straight after he returned. He had to dump the water out first thing in the morning, and straight after he returned home from work. That means that the pot it was a tall pot too. That means the super tall pot would fill up in like merely 8 hours. Eventually, he began to notice water damage at the source of the leak. The white ceiling had discolored, turning a dull shade of brown. My thumb's turning purple from the way I'm holding my tablet. Dang it. 1 minute. Ow. Here we go. Eventually, he began to notice water damage at the source of the leak. The white ceiling had discolored, turning a dull shade of brown. He checked the weather and realized that it would continue to rain over the next 10 days. The man was worried about the ceiling mildewing and becoming an expensive repair, so he called a local handyman. Unfortunately, the man could not sign to have the repairs done, only his landlord could. It was a frustrating policy. The man called the landlord but could not reach him. He left him a few voicemails detailing how the damage was becoming progressively worse. The man was clueless as to why his landlord would not return his calls. They usually kept in touch, speaking at least twice a month. Finally, he reasoned that he would not be held accountable for any damages sustained. One night, the man was startled awake by a massive thump. He quickly turned on his bedside lamp. Just vaguely, he could see an overturned table and a large shape lying across it. He sprinted out of his apartment, calling the police, gagging at the smell. The man sat in the police station with a blanket wrapped around his shoulders and a coffee mug resting in his hands. He did know one thing: there had been a dead body in his ceiling, and the water had saturated it so badly it had caved under the weight. So far, the body was unidentifiable due to the rainwater and was being examined, maybe. While the man waited, he called his landlord and finally reached him. Panicking as he explained the situation, the landlord was just as alarmed, and the man pleaded for him to come to the station while he made his statement. The man paused as a detective crossed over to him, and he lowered his phone, wondering if the body had been identified. His blood ran immediately cold, and he shook his head with terror. The body belonged to Richard Thompson, his landlord, and he had died over a year ago. That's not what disturbed him most. If his landlord was dead, who was pretending to be him? Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and read number 7. I sat on the bus on my way to school, listening to music and paying little to no attention to the other students. At one of the stops, my mind snapped back into reality. I turned towards the small house, Tommy's house, I thought. Hand slipped through the drapes of the window and waved the bus driver to move on. He's sick, I thought, paying no large amount of the attention by this situation. The day flew by. I watched the local news channel after school, and what I heard paralyzed me. Tommy's entire family was murdered that day by an unknown suspect. After hearing the news, I moved back up to my room and and quietly fell asleep. The next day I sat on the bus, drove past Tommy's house, and the bus driver, unaware of Tommy's family's fate, stopped at his home. I was about to get up and explain to her what happened. Something caught my eye. A pale hand slipped through the drapes of the window and waved the bus driver to move on. I sat on the bus, terrified. Okay. Okay, this one might be a little longer because I'm going to read the last one because it's the last one. I'm not going to make a separate video just for number 8. Here we go. Number 8. Okay, this is not the title, but I really hate why the stories go unfinished. I'm gonna look at the website again and later and see what happens when I press the word source, because there's source underlined in red, and it might take me to it will probably take me to the source of this story and maybe show more of the story, but I think the creepiest part of these stories is that they're left unfinished. Well, it seems to be unfinished. They are finished. Just like that one was. Anyways, number 8. Seaweed. My grandmother grew up in the slums of Caribbean-era Chicago. Her family lived in a small house near the harbor. Now I'm getting a Chicago accent. I'll just do whatever voice for this one. Her family lived in a small house near the harbor, and one of her earliest memories was a particularly hot summer when, seeking respite from the heat, she and her sister discovered a seldom used section of boardwalk near an abandoned warehouse. I honestly don't know what seldom used means, but if you want to know, you can go look it up. Every night for several weeks, the two girls would make their way down to the docks and sit together on the edge of the pier as the sun went down. My grandmother vividly and for a time fondly recalled the feel of the seaweed between her toes as she and her sister dangled her feet into the murky water. It wasn't until years later that she returned to the pier and found that the warehouse had been demolished. Curious, she made an inquiry to the Department of Planning and Development. Apparently the warehouse had been owned by the mob, who was using it as a base of operations for a local prostitution racket. It had only been uncovered when an associate began depositing of rival hookers by fitting them in concrete shoes and dumping them into the harbor. Investigating officers had recovered nearly 24 bodies from the waters of secured pier nearby. How had the bodies been discovered? A passing fisherman spotted some victims' hair floating near the water like seaweed. That one isn't creepy, it's just... Oh, excuse me, I farted. That one isn't creepy, it's just weird. Okay, it's kind of creepy because it's like, imagine you sitting on a pier, putting your feet into some cold water, and what you think is seaweed that is going between your toes is dead people's hair. That freaks me out. That was it of the whole page. I'll look up some more creepypasta stories. If you want me to do a creepypasta story that's like a character, like Laughing Jill, or Ben Drowned, or Slenderman, or whatever. Slenderman, something. Robert the Doll, whatever. I don't even know Robert the Doll right now. I might look it up later. I will do it for you. That's it. Thanks for tolerating me, guys. and see you later. Oh, dang it, I did it. 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 I can't believe I did it. You will hear me later. That's the correct way of saying it. Thanks for tolerating me. Bye.